So today we are seeing a new topic, and that is what data processing. So this is a new topic on data processing. So first let us see what is data processing. So till now all of you know what is a data. In the previous lectures I have already said to you that what exactly is a data. So when you go for research, when you do some research, then all the informations that you are gathering, they are your data. Now that information, when you gather, it has to be processed. Simply, if you just gather data, there will be a host of data and that will be of no use until and unless you process the data, you analyze the data. So that is called data processing. So in data processing, what is generally done? So it is a series of what actions or steps which are taken after. This comes only after the collection of the data, not before the collection of the data. And why is this required? This is required to verify the data, to organize the data, to transform it, integrate it, etc. So these are the various reasons or the steps that are taken after the data collection. And when this whole process is done, when the whole process is done, so this is the process. So in the whole process, the data is converted to information. So the data is converted to information. If there is simple data, then it is of no use. When we have information, that information is of use to us. So I will just give an example so the things will be clear to you. For example, if we have, let us take the COVID example. Right now we are having COVID. So for example, we need to find out, we need to take certain decisions on the Mizoram COVID situation. So for that, if I ask my students, just go and get the data. What kind of data? That how many people are dying, how many people are getting vaccinated, how many people are in the quarantine houses, etc., safe homes, etc., who are the symptomatic, how many people are symptomatic. So some of you may come up with these data, but with this data this will be of no use to me, or this will be of no use to the researcher who is working on the COVID, because these are certain just some data, how many people have died, etc., etc. But this has to be processed, and then we get the information what is the death rate in through COVID in Mizoram, what is the recovery rate because of this COVID in Mizoram. What is the vaccination rate? When we have these things, then the government will be able to take decisions with respect to maybe that this region, this particular locality is having high death rates. So maybe we quarantine that place. Or maybe that this particular age group is still to be quarantined or still to be vaccinated. Let us vaccinate that thing, that age group. So these decisions can be taken. Or when we are seeing these days the various the COVID map over India. So when we process the data that we get, then we will get a map of all over India. Through that map we will know that okay, these states, these areas are the ones which are still having very high rate of COVID. So these informations are required to us. I will give another example. For all of us knows that Mizoram is a place which is highly susceptible to landslides. Now, researchers who are working on landslides, maybe they go out into the study area and they might take various research data. For example, which are the localities, which are the points where landslides has occurred in the past 5 years. So they will map those locations in the map with proper coordinates. Next, they will have to check what is the nature of the slope. If that there is obviously, we all know that if it is more, the slope is more steep, then there will be more landslide. If the slope is less steeper, then there will be lesser landslides. So what is the nature of the slope? Then we will have to measure the nature of the steepness of the slope, so that can easily be measured. Then maybe the researchers gathers data about what is the nature of the rock type, because rock type is also an important component or factor for landslide. So this is another data. Then maybe the researcher will gather the information or the data regarding the rainfall, because rainfall is another triggering factor. The more the rain is there, the more we have landslides. So these data, then the researcher will find out what is the nature of the land use, land cover in that particular study area, whether it is forested, whether it is barren. Because if it is barren, then there will be more landslides. So when with these data, this will have to be converted, and that process, that conversion process, and through conversion, then when this data will all this data will be analyzed. Maybe as geographers we analyze it in a GIS software. So when these will be analyzed, then we will come to the ultimate thing, and that is called the landslide susceptibility mapping. So that is an information, because in landslide susceptibility mapping, what we do, for those who do not know what is landslide susceptibility mapping, you can just check in the internet about landslide susceptibility mapping maps. So over there you will see various maps of landslide susceptibility mapping, wherein in the map they say that, okay, for example, if this is the map, this colored portion, maybe this blue zone denotes region with very high susceptibility of landslide. Maybe this black zone denotes very low susceptibility of mapping, susceptibility of landslides. So through landslide susceptibility mapping, that is the ultimate information, because when we have that map, then we know that, okay, these are the regions which are having very high, these are very susceptible to landslides, so we should not build our houses, any commercial establishments, etc., in those regions. Okay, so these are the regions which are safe. So if these are safe, then we are allowed to make our anthropogenic activities in these regions. Government will know, okay, so these are the regions wherein we have to take more precautions, for various sorts of precautions. So this is the information which is required. Just simple, if we gather data, these slopes are 20% steep, and that is 30% steep, that won't be of any use, that is just data. So this is how data is converted to information, and this, the whole step, is called data processing. So next we see some examples, more examples of data processing. Supposing all like examination records, I will just give from examination record. So all of you will be giving exams. Now when you give exam, then what I need to do is that I need to collect the your papers, the exam papers I need to collect. When I will collect the exam papers, then what I need to do is that I will have to give a score on each of yours exam sheet. Now this exam sheet, which the score sheet, it is then given to the class teacher in case of a school, or in case of us in the university, we will give this to the exam department. So these are all what this score sheet and etc. These are all data. Now, then the exam department will calculate the exam marks for each of the students. Based on that, the final information is this report card. In this report card, that who has stood first, etc. So this report card is the final information, because not only my subject reports will be there, but the marks for the other teachers subjects will also be there. So that is the final information, wherein a student will get a grade or will be marked according to whatever score he has received, first, second, third, etc. That will be marked. So this is how the data processing, this is in very easy terms, what is data processing, how our data is so as you can see over here, there are 6 methods. I am not reading these out, you can just check, you can just read for yourselves that there are 6 steps which are present in the data processing. So now let us just see. I hope you have seen the various steps. So now let us see the first one, that is questionnaire checking. Now this is the very primary step. whenever we go for research, then we have to make questionnaire. Generally, that is what we do in our social science. We generally do questionnaire. Now, when the questionnaire comes to us, the filled in questionnaire comes to us, then we have to do some checking. We cannot just randomly believe in the questionnaire which comes to us. The first thing is that whether we should accept as it is or we should not accept the questionnaire as it, the filled in questionnaire as it is. If we are going to accept it as it is very much fine. If we are not going to accept it as it is, then what are the circumstances then that we should not accept it as it is? I have also asked you, many of you, to do some researches. So when you go to your field and when you do your questionnaires, then you must follow these steps. So if it is not accepted as it is, what are the reasons? If it is not fully filled, if it is only in a it is only incomplete, it is only partially filled, you have to fill it fully. It is not that okay, you don't feel like, or the enumerator does not feel like, the researcher does not feel like, he feels lethargic. That does not happen. You have to fill each and every part of the questionnaire. You cannot make up your, you cannot just make it up and just write it down just to save your time. That does not happen. That gives that erroneous result. If, for example, the answer which has been given by a person, it has been given who has inadequate knowledge. Supposing any of you, you want to ask a person a question, maybe you are asking that person on, uh, maybe you are asking on classical singing, classical songs, or classical dances, but that person does not have any any knowledge about classical songs or dances. uh, then but he, for example, gives you information about bharatnatyam, etc., the various classical songs, dances. So if that person does not have any knowledge about that, what he is saying, then he should not answer that. If you are asking a question from a person who is just maybe class 12th pass, and you are asking a question which should be answered by a MA student, then that person will give you inadequate knowledge, so you should not accept that. Or if from that answer it is understood that the respondent has answered you, it is right, but he hasn't actually understood what you have questioned him. So in these cases, it is very important that you do a questionnaire checking, and if you find that these are the cases, then you should not accept that question. So editing, what is editing? So as it is written, that it is the process of examining the data. Whatever data you are having, so you just need to examine the data. So, and this starts only after the data collection. So there are different types of data editing. So these are the various types of data editing, and we will look into each of these separately. So first of all, what is editing for quality? So when we do editing for quality, we need to ask these questions. That is the data forms complete? Is the data free of bias? Are the recordings free of errors? So we need to find out these questions. When we ask these questions, then we know what is the quality of the data. If the data is not free of bias, if it is not free of bias, regarding data free of bias, I had said already in one of my previous lectures. So you can just go back to that video and check for free of bias. So if it is not free of bias, if that data has information which the questionnaire, which you yourself think that should be the right answer, then it is not free of bias. So if it is not free of bias, then your data is not of good quality. A data should be free of bias, what the enumerator or what the researcher thinks. So it should be based upon what exactly the respondent thinks, not what you think. So based upon these, if the questions that has been asked, we decide the quality of the data. Editing for tabulation. When we need to tabulate our data. Why we need to tabulate our data? Because when we tabulate the data, then we reject items, reject pieces of data which we think that will not be helpful to us, or we modify the data into various tables and they helps us a lot. We will see about data tabulation later on also. Then we do field editing. So in field editing, it is generally done by the enumerator. I have already told you who is an enumerator. So in a field editing, so this is very much important, in which it is later on the schedule that is filled up, it is rectified by the enumerator. And check this sentence, this should be done as soon as the interview is done. Because maybe what happens, maybe the enumerator in his hurry, he scribbles down something. He scribbles down something in the questionnaire. For example, I had told you who is an enumerator, like the people who do our census survey, they are enumerators. So maybe in a census survey, because that person needs to do a lot of surveys. So maybe in his hurry, he scribbles down some things in the form. But then later on, as soon as his interview is not over, if he doesn't rectify these problems, then what would happen if these problems are not rectified? Then obviously later on he will forget about all these things, what he had scribbled down. So he must immediately rectify, he must immediately write down in details whatever he has scribbled down. So as soon as the interview is over, otherwise he will forget about the total interview. Then we have the central editing. See the difference over here. This is done by the enumerator, and this particular thing is done by the researcher. I have already said you about the difference between enumerator and the researcher. So central editing is not done by the enumerator. This is done by the researcher. So the ultimately it is the work of the researcher to do the ultimate central editing, and this is done after he gets all the questionnaires, he gets all the forms. So after he gets all the forms, after he gets the details, after he gets the schedules, the questionnaire, etc., then he goes for the central editings, again which is done by this researcher, etc. Next, we have the coding of data. So, what do we mean by coding of data? We all know what is the meaning of coding. So, it is written over here. What is the coding, etc. So, when in coding, what we do is that the researcher, he will set a particular code for particular things. Like, see over here, I have written M for male or female. So, instead of writing the whole thing, he will just give certain codes. Why this code is necessary? This code is necessary to save his time. So maybe he would not only just these alphabets, he might use these numericals also, like these numericals. He might use numericals. He might know, the researcher might be knowing what exactly this code is for. So that is again necessary for saving time, etc. He might provide certain colors also. So this is again required, these numbers are required for easy calculation, easy tabulation, for ease of research, ease of data collection, etc. So these are the steps which are taken, these are the 4-step process to develop the codes. So as I have said to you about, these are the numerical code, the coded value, etc. So you can just go through these 4 steps which has been written. So as you are seeing that data can be classified into two particular two types, that is the attributes and the class interval. Now what do we mean by the attribute data? So as you can see over here, so attributes can be, so these are the various attributes which you are seeing in the screen, on the screen. These are the various attributes. These are the various attributes. So they can be classified. Attributes can be classified if it is descriptive. They can be classified. So descriptive are what? Examples of descriptive are these. So, for example, for this particular thing called literacy, we can classify it as 10th, 12th, UG, PG, etc. We can classify that. So, similarly, each and these can be classified the class intervals. So, when we have class intervals, then what we do is that with relate to again, this can be a part of the attribute data also comes over here. So, we see weight also over here. So in class interval, so for example, I have given here example of marks interval. So from 1 to 10, how many students have secured that? From 11 to 20, how many students have secured that? So this is a class interval. So you are seeing that no class is overlapping on each other. So this is starting from 11. If this is ending at 20, this is starting from 21. So this is a class interval, so data can be again classified according to this class interval as you are seeing over here. Then we have tabulation of data. So what is tabulation of data? So we are making it in a tabular form as you are seeing over here. Certain data I have given over here which has been tabulated in specific formats. So you see this, there is a whole lot of data over here from 2006 to 2018. There's a whole lot of data over here. There's a whole lot of categories in which the data has been divided. Tabulation of data is required just when we have a huge number of data, when we have a quite a considerable amount of data, and we need to display that data in compact form, then we do this tabulation of data, and generally this is done either in the digital mode or by hand. So over here, as you are seeing that there is a huge number of data which I am trying to represent. So what I am doing over here, if I just write this data down from 2006, this amount, so that will be a whole lot of pages. But if I just represent this in a tabular form, then I am doing the same thing, and the representation becomes in a much more compact form as you are seeing over here. And also we can easily categorize, we can easily analyze the data. We can easily analyze the data between, for example, what was in 2006, what was the category in square kilometer in extremely wet, and what it has happened in 2018. So we can easily, you see, you can compare the data, you can see the data, you can just analyze the various forms, so you can summarize the data. So for this is very much important. So tabulation of data, making the data in tabular form is very much important, and this is a very important step this for the processing of data. So whatever data, for example, I have taken these data, so whatever data I have taken, I have tabulated the data, I have processed the data into a specific some tabulation in specific tables. I have done that, so that representation or displaying becomes easier. At the last part of the process, the last step of the process, in which you can see that there is the representation of the data in various diagrams or the graphical representation. So this helps in getting the attention of the reader. So if I graphically represent the data as you are seeing over here, so instead of just tabular form, okay, I've represented that in tabular form. But if I want to represent that through, like for example, this particular graph, or maybe this particular graph, this is a pie chart. So I can easily represent, the data can easily be represented. So a person will be knowing that, okay, so this is the, over here you can see the legends. So you can see that this much of area, maybe 45% of the area or 65% of the area falls to this particular category. This particular thing falls to this particular category, or maybe this another type of graph. So over here in this graph, you can easily see that which is the data which has been represented. You can easily see that maybe in this time, maybe during February. So this blue line, whatever it is representing, that is more. But maybe over here in March, this has become less. So the trend can easily be understood over here. So these charts, the graphs, the diagrams, these helps in representing the data more accurately, or it helps for the readers to understand it more better, what information we actually want to provide. So this is all about data processing.